What if I told you that you could steal anything? Anything at all, and no one would ever find out? There are no cameras, no alarms, no witnesses, no chance of you getting caught. No police knocking on your door, no awkward moments where you have to explain yourself, no guilt, no fear, just you and whatever you've done. Now, let's really think about this. Would you do it? At first, you might say no, because stealing is wrong, right? It's against the law, it's unfair, you don't want to be that person. But let's say you knew, without a shadow of a doubt, there would be no consequences, that no one, not a single person would ever know. Not even who you're stealing from, not what you're stealing, nothing. Would you take something small? A chocolate bar? Drink from the corner shop? Just £1, doesn't matter. Would you take something bigger? A designer watch? A new phone? You're not going to get caught, who does it affect? Or would you go all out? A luxury car? A painting from a big museum? A billionaire's yacht? At what point, if any, does it stop feeling like a harmless thought experiment and start feeling like an actual crime? Or does it never feel like a crime at all? Now, before you make up your mind, let's break this down properly. Because as it turns out, your brain has already been answering this question for you, whether you realise it or not. And that brings me on to the psychology of stealing. People steal for different reasons. Some steal because they have to. They're desperate. They need food, clothes, shelter, and they don't see any other option. Some steal because they want to, not because they need the item, but because the act of stealing itself is thrilling. It's the adrenaline rush, the power trip of breaking the rules and getting away with it. And then there's the third group, the ones who justify it. They don't see themselves as criminals. They tell themselves, it's not that bad, or it's not hurting anyone, or the company I'm stealing from make billions. Do they really need the money? It's all corporate. Now, this mindset, the one that justifies stealing because the victim is too rich to care, this is incredibly common. Think about it. If someone steals from a struggling family-run business, most people would say it's wrong. But if someone steals from Amazon or Walmart or Apple or Tesco's, suddenly opinions start to shift. And here's why. Deep down, people just don't care whether something is stolen or not. They care about who is suffering because of it. And when it comes to massive corporations, people assume no one is suffering at all. Which, on the surface, makes sense. I mean, Jeff Bezos isn't going to miss a few lost Amazon packages, right? But here's the problem. Once you justify stealing once, where does it stop? Because stealing isn't just about money. It's about how your brain processes morality. And that is where things get a lot more complicated. Most people, if you ask them outright, would say, no, I wouldn't steal. But here's the thing. Are they really telling the truth? Because when you put people in a real world situation where the opportunity is right in front of them and they know they could get away with it, many of them do steal. So why do people claim they wouldn't? From childhood, we're conditioned to believe that stealing is wrong. Full stop. Good people don't steal. You should work for what you have. Stealing is a crime. Crime is bad. But what if there's no punishment? The reality is people don't always answer honestly when asked moral questions. They answer socially. They say what makes them look good, what aligns with their self-image, what fits their identity as a good person. It's the same reason why most people claim they'd never cheat on a test. Yet, studies show that when given the chance to self-report their score with no verification, a huge percentage of people cheat. When there's no immediate consequence, morality starts to shift. Also, a lot of people don't see themselves as criminals. Even when they break the law, they mentally separate themselves from the bad crimes. Someone who speeds doesn't see themselves as lawbreakers, just people in a hurry. Someone who pirates movies don't see it as theft, just a loophole. And someone who takes from a massive company might not see it as stealing, just what they deserve. People are excellent at justifying their own behaviour while still believing they're fundamentally good. There's also the fear of being judged. Even in a scenario where no one else will know, we still know. And that matters. People don't just lie to others, they lie to themselves. If someone admits that they would steal if given the chance, then they have to accept something uncomfortable, that they aren't as moral as they want to believe they are. And that's quite hard. So instead of facing the reality, they tell themselves a comforting lie. No, I wouldn't do it. But if they were actually standing in that supermarket with no cameras, no security and no risk, and they saw a nice, lovely chocolate bar in front of them, well, I think that's a different story. Now, before you start spiralling into an existential crisis, don't worry, this doesn't make you a bad person. Thinking about stealing, or even admitting that you might do it under the right condition, doesn't mean that you're about to become some sort of criminal mastermind. I mean, let's be honest, if you're the kind of person who feels guilty for accidentally walking out with a pen from the bank, you're probably not going to be the next great heist leader. All it means is that you're human, and as humans, we're way more flexible with our morals than we like to admit. Anyway, let's talk about justifications. Are victimless crimes always victimless? Let's say you steal from a massive corporation, a company worth billions. On the surface, it might seem like a victimless crime. Who are you hurting? After all, companies already account for theft. They call it shrinkage. It's built into their business model. They lose millions of dollars a year to stolen items, and they still survive. So, what's the harm? Well, here's what actually happens behind the scenes. First, when theft increases, Companies raise prices to make up for their losses. They don't just absorb the cost, they pass it on to customers, people who don't steal. So now, a product that used to cost £5 costs £6. Dramatic, but just for example. And the people that are paying that pound extra, regular shoppers, not a billionaire CEO. Next, companies tighten security. They install more cameras, more sensors, more anti-theft measures. They make return policies stricter. They hire more security. And who do these policies affect the most? Not the thieves, but the average customer who has to jump through hoops just to make a return, or who gets accused of shoplifting because of an overzealous security measure. Then there's the impact on workers. When theft increases, many stores cut costs elsewhere. That means fewer employees, lower wages, worse working conditions. Some retail managers even lose their bonuses if theft at their store is too high. So now the consequences don't just affect the company, they affect individual people, many of whom are underpaid and struggling already. And finally, there's a ripple effect. If people feel justified stealing from the corporations, what stops them from feeling justified stealing from rich individuals? If it's okay to steal from a billionaire, what about a millionaire? What about someone who's just comfortable? At what point does "it's just evening the scales" turn into "I take what I can get"? Because history shows it never really stops at just one thing. This can then become a very slippery slope. It can normalise crime. Psychologists have studied this for decades, and what they found is that once someone steals, it becomes easier to justify doing it again. It's called moral erosion. The first time you do something wrong, it feels huge. The second time, it's a little easier. And by the 10th time, it barely feels like a crime at all. This is why many criminals don't start out as criminals. They start with tiny infractions, small thefts, white lies, little rule breaks, but over time, their moral compass shifts. The more they get away with, the more their brain normalises it. They stop seeing theft as a crime and start seeing it as a right. And once that happens, it becomes almost impossible to draw the line between what's okay and what isn't. Now let's bring this back to you. If you could steal, and you knew you'd never get caught, would you? Or maybe the real question isn't if you would, but why would you? At the end of the day, morality isn't about consequences. It's about who you are when no one's watching. Because if you only do the right thing when you're afraid of getting caught, did you ever really believe it was the right thing at all? So, would you still take it? These thought experiments are great because there are so many different perspectives. What do you think? Would you steal or not? And if you would, where's the line? Is it justifiable? I want to hear your thoughts, so please let me know. And I won't steal your ideas, so don't worry.